One of the books I've really enjoyed growing up is Cache Lake Country by John Rowlands. This book follows Rowlands living in a cabin in the Canadian woods for kind of a year. Though it's very clear it's not like this is everything that happens to him in a year. It just kind of goes through the seasons and describes things that kind of happen during that time of year and various events that he does at that time of year and other interesting things. In this excellent, though slightly dated as it was published in 1947 book, there's various projects which happen at different times of the year. One of those that I would like to explore right now is how to waterproof matches. He does this by melting down the stubs from candles that he's almost used up and then pours that wax over layers and layers of matches which he has stacked in a small metal box that he can fit in like a shirt pocket. The wax is to keep the water away from the matches, and the metal box is to keep the mice and squirrels away from the wax. Now, I don't really have much of a practical use for it because what I carry in the woods is a plastic waterproof container with some water-resistant matches inside. He mentions that you can use a tightly corked bottle, but as plastic isn't as widely available or ubiquitous as it is nowadays, when he wrote the book, likely explaining a time in the 1930s or maybe 1940s, the glass bottles that you'd have to use are too susceptible to breaking. So I'm going to just see how well the matches work once coated in wax. I'm quite certain that the wax will waterproof them, but what I do want to see is how hard it is to get the matches out of the wax and if they'll still work well after being coated in wax. That's the thing I'm most suspect about, because match heads, to me, I think it'd be hard to get the wax right off down to the match head without like injuring or deforming the match head itself, which I think could reduce its effectiveness. So I have the matches on a thin layer of wax which I've melted and let cool, and then I'm going to pour some more of this reclaimed candle wax, paraffin wax, onto them. This will give them a full coating in wax, and I'll let it cool. I was slightly worried that these would float up to the top, and it looks like one might be. I'll try to push that one back down, but the other ones seem well stuck to the bottom. There's another one. Looks like some of that wax is melting it and being on the hot stove. Because we don't really use matches around our house, we find a lot of lighters on the side of the road. The matches I showed myself waterproofing were some that I found around with unknown age and source. Even though the taking them out of the wax went well, they mostly just popped out and only one of the 5 was ruined. I could not get either them or my controls, which I did nothing to light. So I got myself some new ones which I have coated with wax, changing a few things based on my experience with the first set, which was that it was really hard to get the block of wax out of the tin can, and that the cold joint between the 2 layers of wax had almost no strength to it. My mom's impression of how you waterproofed matches with wax was by dunking them in the wax and getting them fully soaked in there. And then just taking them out and letting them cool individually. And I'm putting this on a piece of polished stone that can handle having wax and just scrapes off easily. So I'll try this method as well because it's, I think, a lot simpler, and I'd expect it's a lot easier to deal with the matches afterwards, whereas the other one I would expect takes a lot of carving out. So the first test I'm going to do is put these supposedly waterproof matches in water to I'll test their waterproofing. And I'm only putting some of these alternate style matches in because I just want to have some that aren't exposed to water. So then, time to try box matches. Due to the length of time that it took me to do all these tests, I've shortened the footage in this video. If you would like to see the raw footage from this point on, I've linked it in the description and on screen. No extra information is in this video that is not in the raw footage. There are a couple strikes there. Is that one broke? Really dip these in water to put them out. These seem to be working pretty well. I just want to see if there's any that don't work. And I'm not used to using matches, so that's probably why I'm having some issues with these not going immediately. I don't quite know the pressure to apply. Now let's try these ones that were dipped in wax, but not put in water. Seems like it's having a little bit of more trouble burning. I'm having a little bit more trouble lighting these than I was the other ones. That one doesn't seem to want to light. Hey, now let's try the ones that were in water. And having them in water for a relatively short amount of time and wanting to use them shortly afterwards, I think is fairly realistic. One of the stories that was related in Cache Lake Country is that one time he tipped his canoe in some rapids, and he lost the canoe. He later was able to find it, but he was pretty cold and wanted to get a fire going right away, and was glad he had his knife and waterproof matches. So just try to dry it off on my hand a bit and see if I can get these to light. So that's like gumming up some. So these just don't seem to want to light, and they do seem worse than when I was doing it without the... Yeah, that's just really gummed up. I think I need to go grab another matchbox for testing the other ones. So now I want to carve these matches out of the wax. This wax seems to be peeling off pretty easily, as I saw previously as well, once I get it down to right by the matches. Just getting it down to that's hard, though. Okay, now for trying to light these. This looks clean, though it feels a little bit waxy still. Lit right up. Looks like it's burning better than that one other one that I dipped in wax. And it's definitely melting some wax. Ah, shouldn't have done this on top of the paper. I'll just let that one burn. These fully encased in wax matches lit basically as well as the straight out of the box unmodified matches. So I think this is actually pretty clear that doing this full encasing in wax is a lot better than just dipping them in wax. The dipping them in wax seemed to make them harder to light even without putting them in water, though there's a pretty small sample size of 2 on that. Whereas this fully encasing them in wax and then carving it out, though it's harder to get to them, it does fully waterproof them, whereas just dipping them in wax didn't seem to waterproof them. And they seem to light pretty well, whereas the dipping them in wax, as I was saying, they didn't light very well. So this is definitely a better method than that, and I think works pretty well. I didn't do a long duration in the water test, but if you're fully encased in wax, I don't see why that wouldn't work.